All right, hello students. Welcome to today's lesson. For today, we are going to primarily use the beginning to review fully the volume sheet that you did yesterday. Additionally, after that, I will be rolling out a practice test that you'll work on individually. This practice test and the volume review will be allowed on the test next Thursday. You should see a little annotation at the very top that says allowed on test. Additionally, I will be going ahead and checking both sheets in next week, Wednesday. Now, for the most part, when I'm going over the volume review that is on here, I'll release the key later next week. Okay, it's not active on the homework calendar, but I'm going to prioritize a few questions that I know and will be kind of the harder questions or issues when we start working on this type of review. Now, this is Miss Wynn's review. We swap off creating the answer keys, but you'll notice that most of our work is pretty similar, but there'll be a couple things that I'll clarify that could make your life easier, especially when it comes to the missing dimension stuff. So with that being said, at this point you should have it already out. I'm not going to go over the first three. Those are pretty straightforward, accessible questions, but I'm going to zoom in on number 4 and 5. So as I'm working on these and explaining these questions, your job is to look at and review your work and determine how yours compares to what's up here. And I will annotate and highlight on this screen so you can see some of the finer points of these problems. So for 4 and 5, you had to find a missing dimension, and 4 was height and so was 5, but in both of them, in order to find the height, you had to use the formula accurately and you had to use inverse operations. So I'm going to go over 4 and kind of break down the numbers as you see. If you look at number 4, the general idea is to use the cylinder formula and substitute what you know. So I know V, so I'm going to put it in for V. You can see it in yellow. I know the radius, and I'm going to put it in for radius there, and then carry down everything else. From there, it's straightforward equation solving, but what I know is that we are having issues with some of the numbers and what step you do immediately following that. So I'm going to highlight right afterwards. You're going to notice I highlighted 169 pi. I got that by doing 13 squared and multiplying by pi. At this point, typically, and I'll do it on the side, you have seen me go ahead and divide that entire expression out to solve for h. You can divide by 169 pi and get h directly. 169 cancels, pi's cancel. But one thing that you'll notice that I've been recommending for students that do not, that are having trouble understanding that concept, and you can see Miss Wynn has done this, you can multiply 169 by pi, 3.14, to get 530.9. At that point, it's a little easier to see, oh, I just got to divide by that number. 169 pi is the same as 530.9. So if you do not want to divide by the expression that you see in blue over here, and you have to put parentheses around on the denominator, you can just punch those numbers out and away you go. From there, you can solve it down. Height is 47.1 feet. Don't forget your units. It's the same process for the cone, but when you're looking over at the cone side, it's up there on the screen, when you're substituting what you know, the third step that you see, I'm going to highlight it in yellow. This is where, it is recommended to go ahead and multiply those all out. You can multiply by 3 on both sides, as I have done it in the past. So over on the side, I'm going to do that. For this answer key, Miss Wynn's method, is slightly different, but it's going to give us the same results. So if we start at the step that she had there, you can multiply by 3 on both sides. That's my recommendation. I always find that that is the better way to get rid of 1/3. And if you do that, you'll just get a little larger number on the side. 300 equals 16 pi h. Then you can go ahead and work through solving for h by multiplying 16 pi and dividing it out. Either way, you're going to end up getting a height of 6 inches on this. So with that being said, those two seem to be the ones that kind of trouble many students, so look at it carefully. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to pause this video if needed, But in a moment, I'm going to go down to the bottom question and scroll down to that. Okay, so pause this video if needed. I'll let it roll for a second, and then I'll resume talking about some of the other problems. All right, let's go to that bottom question. Now, this one, okay, was a little bit different because you're looking at what's called a composite, okay? Even if you don't know what that word means, immediately following it, okay, I wrote in what it actually means. A composite is the volume of two shapes combined. So what you need to do is, hey, what shapes are they? So if you look carefully, there's a sphere on top sitting on top of a box, and it's a cube. There are a couple formulas you should know by now that is not on the board. The cube formula is V equals S cubed, side times side times side. You can also use this, V equals LWH. That is a prism. That is a rectangular or box prism formula, length times width times height. Now, because all of them are the same, we use V equals S cubed. And as you're looking through this, the work is pretty straightforward. You use the sphere formula, cube formula, but in a composite, because they're combined, you're going to add them together, and you can see that solution over on the side. And use 3.14 generally for pi, and you should get very similar answers and numbers to what is shown up there. And once again, don't forget your units, which are centimeters cubed. So with that being said, on the front page, those are the three questions that I'd like to prioritize. I'll zoom out so you can see all of them. And at this point, please go ahead and pause the video if needed. I will let it roll. We're going to continue here in just a moment. All right. So on the very back, let's talk about question number 7. 7, okay, is just an extended question that's asking you to make one extra connection. It says, a cylinder with diameter 3 centimeters and height 8 centimeters is filled with water. Decide which figures described here, if any, could hold all of the water from the cylinder. Show proper mathematical evidence and formula work for each shape. So quite a few of you reached out with questions regarding this when we rolled this out. And unpacking the story problem, you can see that you need to know if any of the shapes below, A, B, C, and D, could hold all of the water from the cylinder, which means that you're comparing the volumes. You're comparing the volumes. So if you're comparing the volumes, you need to solve for the volume of the cylinder first, and you can see the work on the side here. The only thing to be cautionary about is, you can see it highlighted on the screen, the diameter was 3, so the radius is 1.5. But otherwise, it's a very straightforward calculation. You're going to get 56.5 or 18 pi cubic centimeters. As you're working through the rest of the problems, it's just practicing the formulas. For A, the cone, height 8, radius 3, you can see that it's 75.4 is the volume. It is decently bigger than 56.5. That is why the cone can hold the volume of the cylinder. You're just comparing the numbers. Which one is bigger? So it's a complex looking problem, but the general idea is just to continue to solve for volume. For B, the cylinder came out to be 18 pi. It was exactly the same as the cylinder that they showed, which means that it can hold exactly the water of the original. Volume's the same. And then for C, with the box, okay, remember, length times width times height, okay, LWHV. The prism can hold the water of the cylinder. Its volume is just a little bit greater, okay? Actually, it's about twice as great, 96 compared to 56. And then for D, the sphere could not, because it is actually quite a bit smaller. So if you solve that down, there's only one measurement that you need, radius, and using the 4/3 pi r cubed formula, that came out to be 33.5. So this is a nice, a little higher level question. It just requires you to make a few connections to what is being asked. It's a story problem, so oftentimes the confusion comes from the language. So review that. Pause this video at this point if needed. I'm going to let it roll, and we'll look at the last problem. All right. On this last problem, similar in a story problem, just got to figure out, okay, what did they give us? What do we have to solve? Be careful of some of the language. It is a cylinder in this case, okay? So you need to use the cylinder formula that I've highlighted. It says the tank comes equipped with a sensor to alert the farm to fill it up when the water falls to 20% capacity. What's the volume of the tank when the sensor turns off? So at this point, what you're looking at is solving for the volume. And just typically, that's just our regular formula. So when you get it and finish it, you get 461.8. Now 20% means that we're looking to multiply that volume by 0.2, because 20% as a decimal is 0.2. And when you multiply that, you get 92.4. That's the extension. That's the extra layer added to this problem. So you should have been able to solve the volume, but if you're stuck on the second part, that means, okay, you should be looking and checking and reviewing this side of the work here. You multiply the volume by 0.2. That's, okay, the volume of the tank is 92.4, okay, when the sensor turns on. So at this stage, okay, that's once again kind of like an extension, a little bit higher end question. Most of you should have been able to do the first part, and if you're stuck on the second, okay, hopefully the explanation went ahead and explained it. So at this stage, okay, once again, all right, hold on to this sheet. Okay, answer key will be activated in the homework calendar at a later point before the test next week. If you did not finish this, even though I went over some of the key questions, there are other questions on here you still got to wrap up. I will be actively checking this on Wednesday of next week. So what that means for today, there's a couple things that I'm going to have you do. Okay, so on the screen, you're going to notice a practice test that I'm going to roll out. This is the practice test. Every unit we have given you a practice test that closely mimics the types of questions and topics and concepts that you're going to be held accountable for. I want everyone to work on this practice test individually. You're going to have it passed out in a moment. Use your notes and workbook for resource help. Being that it's a practice test, okay, think about what your test setting day is. You're doing everything individual. You're not getting help from others. You use your resources. So, okay, as I always think, or I recommend for practice tests, is that you work on it individually fully by yourself. Go through, start at question 1, start at question 2. If you work on it with a partner or a person behind you, okay, realize that you're not giving yourself the benefit of knowing, hey, do I really know this? So work on it individually. I'm going to stress the individual part. That's to force you to hold yourself accountable, because you're not going to be going ahead and doing this with a partner. You're going to be doing it individually. And being a practice test, prioritize these type of questions fully. Use your notes and workbook for any type of help at a point. Okay, anything you don't know or totally stuck, skip over, come back to it, because on Wednesday we will actively go through this again. If you finish the practice test before the end of the hour, there is time built in that you can complete your iReady MyPads. Don't forget, your MyPads are going to reset and turn off, okay, by Monday. And Monday morning, it turns off, technically at midnight. You need 2 lessons completed by Sunday evening. Okay, and the last little thing I'm going to roll out here is any lessons past 2 that you complete on your MyPads, I will count as extra credit. So this is where you have an opportunity. So if you have 4 in there, you get 2 extra credit, 3, 4, 5. The points will be determined based on the weighting. Okay, so each lesson is going to be standard 4 points, okay, but afterwards, depending on how many that you do, it will be definitely a benefit for you. So Land School will be up, so make sure you're just using the computers for what they're intended. At this point, that completes this lesson video, okay? Work diligently the remainder of the hour. Don't forget that iReady Spring Diagnostic is Monday. Have your computers in, fully charged, ready to rock, and we will go ahead and get that completed Monday and Tuesday. All right, thank you.